All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. Welcome, agents, to this professional Homevets Realty Coaching session. Now, today's workshop is absolutely vital to your day-to-day success in the field. We're going to diagnose exactly why sellers really object, and honestly, more importantly, how to properly guide them through it. Look, as real estate professionals, we face objections every single day, right? But what if I told you that what you're actually hearing is rarely the real problem? Today, we're going to completely change the way you hear your clients.
So go ahead and get settled in, grab your notes, and really focus your attention here, because today's workshop is specifically designed to elevate your practice. We're talking about making that leap from being just a simple order taker to becoming a deeply trusted real estate advisor. You're here because you want to master your craft. And, true mastery requires looking beneath the surface of these everyday transactions to truly understand the human being sitting right on the other side of the table. So here's our roadmap for today. We've got 6 critical modules. 1, the biggest mistake. 2, emotion drives every objection. 3, the 5 hidden reasons. 4, stop answering before understanding. 5, your greatest listing tool. And we'll wrap up with 6, the Homevets Coach's Corner.
Let's start right at the top. Module 1, the biggest mistake. We really need to start by focusing squarely on the most common and frankly the most costly mistake that new real estate agents make when they hear a seller's very first objection. It's such an easy trap to fall into, especially when you're super eager to prove your worth and lock down that listing. But read this principle carefully. The best listing agents don't overcome objections, they understand them. Think about it. When a seller looks across the table and says, "Well, we need to think about it," what do most agents do? They panic. They dive straight into a defense of their marketing plan, they try to justify their years of experience, or worse, they immediately offer to lower their commission. And by doing that, they completely miss the actual deeper concern. They are literally answering a question the seller hasn't even really asked. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the divide in our industry. What most agents do is hear an objection and they treat it as an argument that just has to be won. But successful listing agents, they understand one very simple yet profound principle. People make emotional decisions first, and then they justify them with logic afterward. Your job is never to simply win an argument against the seller. Your job is to understand them. And that always starts with listening before you speak. Which leads us perfectly into Module 2, emotion drives every objection. Listen, every single objection begins with an emotion. We forget this sometimes, right? Because to us, it's just another Tuesday, it's another listing. But to the seller, selling a home is quite literally one of the most emotionally charged financial decisions a person will make in their entire lifetime. And when emotions are involved, people naturally become cautious. They put up walls. So instead of just coming out and saying, "I'm scared," they mask it. They say, "We're going to think about it." The words change, but I promise you the emotion doesn't. Just take a second to think about the heavy emotional weights your sellers are carrying into these meetings. Decades of memories tied to that property. Or maybe they're navigating some really tough life transitions, a divorce, a sudden military relocation, or the loss of a loved one. Add to that the sheer overwhelming financial fear of leaving money on the table, and honestly, it is no wonder they hesitate. So let's actually decode these moments using this translation guide. Listen to these carefully. When they say we need to think about it, what they really mean is, I don't feel comfortable making a decision yet. When they say your commission is too high, what they really mean is, I'm worried about walking away with enough money. When they say we want to interview other agents, what they really mean is, I haven't decided who I trust most. When they say we're going to wait, they actually mean, I'm afraid the timing may be wrong. And when they say we want to list higher, what they truly mean is, I need to maximize my equity or I have unrealistic expectations. Notice a pattern? Almost none of these objections are actually about the words being spoken. They are entirely about uncertainty, fear, and a really deep need for trust.
Okay, let's unpack that further in Module 3, the 5 hidden reasons.
We're going to break down the hidden reasons behind most seller objections, because once you understand which category you're actually dealing with, it changes absolutely everything about how you respond. This is your key to building real, lasting trust. So there are 5 emotional pillars of seller objections: fear, lack of trust, need for control, financial concerns, and emotional attachment. And just a quick note, these root causes, they are not mutually exclusive. A seller could very well be experiencing 2 or even 3 of these at the exact same time. Let's look at them individually. The first one is fear. The seller is just terrified of making the wrong decision. In their head, they're anxiously spinning, asking themselves, what if we leave money on the table? What if we choose the wrong realtor? What if the house just sits there and doesn't sell? The absolutely crucial thing for you to recognize here is that fear disguises itself as hesitation. they aren't actually saying no to you. They're saying they don't feel safe yet. Therefore, your response has to focus entirely on reducing their perceived risk rather than dialing up the pressure.
The second hidden reason is a lack of trust. Look, trust isn't automatically given just because you showed up on time in a nice suit with a beautifully polished presentation. Trust is earned. People don't hire the agent with the longest resume. They hire the one they trust the most. So how do you actually build it? Through listening, through asking really excellent questions, and by showing genuine care for their unique situation. As an advisor, let me give you a quick pro tip. Sharing relevant stories about past clients builds emotional trust significantly faster than just throwing a bunch of market statistics at them. Moving to the third reason, the need for control. Selling a home often feels like a complete and total loss of control. All of a sudden, total strangers are walking through their personal, private space, inspectors are poking around finding flaws, and deadlines are being imposed left and right. Some sellers will resist your advice simply to regain a little sense of footing. So what's your strategy here? Give sellers choices whenever possible. Presenting options immediately restores their sense of agency, and you'll find it naturally reduces their resistance.
Fourth, we have financial concerns. And yes, obviously, sometimes it really is about the money, but rarely in the way agents assume it is. The underlying fear is usually, will we have enough cash left over to buy our next home? Or what if unexpected repairs completely bankrupt this deal? Your commission is often just the easiest, most visible part of the transaction for them to point a finger at and question. So, as a trusted advisor, you have to address the real financial worry, not just defensively try to justify your surface-level commission rate. And our fifth reason is emotional attachment. This home holds decades of memories. To you, it's real estate, but to them, it is literally their life story. Their children grew up in those rooms. Family holidays were celebrated there. Never, ever forget to acknowledge this immense emotional weight before you start discussing any sort of market strategy. When you validate their memories, it signals that you actually see the seller as a human being, not just another transaction on your whiteboard. All right, let's shift into Module 4, Stop Answering Before Understanding. This module directly tackles that terrible, knee-jerk habit of turning a highly sensitive conversation into a defensive sales pitch the very second a commission objection comes up. Here is the approach I want you to take. Step 1, the seller objects. Step 2, you pause. Seriously, I want you to actively resist the overwhelming urge to respond immediately. Instead, stay curious, don't be reactive. Use this exact verbatim example the next time you hear a complaint about money. Can you tell me what concerns you most about the commission? Just pause and ask that. That one single question changes the entire dynamic of the room. It allows you to uncover the real issue instead of just making wild assumptions. To understand exactly why this works so well, we need to look to behavioral science and a concept called the affect heuristic. Basically, this is the tendency for people to let their current emotional state guide their decisions far more than objective facts. When a seller is sitting there anxious or uncertain, their brain is literally hardwired to prioritize threat avoidance over opportunity seeking. You simply cannot logic someone out of an emotional threat response. It doesn't work.
Along those same lines, we have reactance theory. When people feel like their freedom of choice is being threatened or they feel pressured, they are going to push back against you, even against options they might actually prefer if they were calm. Pressure triggers resistance. Period. However, showing curiosity and empathy, that lowers those defenses and signals your deep respect for the seller's autonomy. And that brings us right into Module 5, your greatest listing tool. This all boils down to a profound realization about your role as an agent and exactly why listening is hands down your greatest listing tool. By asking questions instead of delivering defensive answers, you activate something called psychological safety. This is the seller's belief that it is actually safe to be honest, to be vulnerable, and to fully trust you with a massive life decision. People deeply, deeply appreciate being heard before they are advised. When you foster this psychological safety in the room, sellers can make confident, informed decisions without feeling pressured or backed into a corner. Finally, let's wrap up today's session with Module 6, the Homevets Coach's Corner. All right, let's get into your weekly application and homework because look, information without execution is really just entertainment, right? So here is this week's challenge delivered directly to you. On your very next listing appointment, I want you to consciously resist the urge to answer an objection immediately. Catch yourself. Instead, take a breath, ask one follow-up question, and truly listen for the emotion behind their words. And when you get back to your car after the appointment, I want you to ask yourself honestly, did I respond to what the seller said, or did I respond to what they actually meant?
I'm going to end our session today with this really powerful key takeaway, and I want you to remember it. People make emotional decisions first and justify them with logic afterward. Your true job is never to just win the objection, it is to deeply understand the person sitting behind it. If you can master this, you won't just win listings, you are going to earn clients for life. So as you head out into the field today, I leave you with this thought. When they push back, will you be an order taker arguing logic, or will you be the trusted advisor who finally hears what they're actually saying? Have a great week out there, everyone.